Hello and welcome to episode 124. Back in episode 111, I took a trip back to the 1950s and looked at 3 books written collaboratively by Frederik Pohl and Cyril M. Kornbluth. The first 2 of these, The Space Merchants and Gladiator at Law, are major landmarks in the development of social science fiction. In 1955, while that collaboration was ongoing, Frederik Pohl published another novel in partnership with a different author, Lester Del Rey. That novel was Preferred Risk, another minor classic of social SF, in which the world is dominated by a huge, monolithic insurance company. This episode explores Preferred Risk, its unusual future world, and the controversial circumstances in which it was written and published. Frederik Pohl and Cyril M. Kornbluth formed a key collaboration in 1950s American science fiction. Their string of novels written together, beginning with The Space Merchants in 1952, helped to establish the tradition of satirical social SF in that decade. Preferred Risk is a direct successor to those landmark collaborations, with Lester Del Rey filling in for Kornbluth. It's a clever variation on the template established by the Space Merchants, depicting a world dominated by a single, nearly all-powerful insurance company. It's a lesser novel, but an interesting one in its own right. Over the years, though, the content of Preferred Risk has been overshadowed by the strange and unedifying story of its creation. That's because this novel was the winner of a sham contest, and was originally credited to a made-up scientist. The Pohl-Kornbluth novels were serialised in Galaxy magazine, at that time edited by H.L. Gold. In 1953, the magazine announced a novel writing contest in collaboration with the publisher Simon & Schuster. Gold was inundated with entries, but the standard was poor. As Pohl said in 1977, Horace Gold was extremely hard up for a winning novel. He had a large number of selections. He had an apartment on East 14th Street, and one room of it was wall-to-wall cardboard boxes containing novels. I helped Horace by reading manuscripts for him from time to time, and I read quite a few of them, so I know the ones I read were awful. Faced with this situation, Gold suggested to Pohl and Kornbluth that what would become their second major collaboration, Gladiator at Law, be entered as a surefire winner, albeit under a pseudonym. They refused. Separately, Pohl collaborated with another writer, Lester Del Rey, on a novelette also intended for publication in Galaxy. What Pohl and Kornbluth would not do, Pohl and Del Rey were happy to do. They expanded their story to novel length, and it was declared the contest winner. Credited to an invented nuclear physicist, Edson McCann, the novel was serialised over 4 issues between June and September 1955. Pohl and Del Rey banked the $6,500 prize. Preferred Risk then began life as a sham contest winner. While this fact does cast something of a pall over the book, and while it's not as strong as Pohl's work with Kornbluth, Preferred Risk is an entertaining work of social SF. It's perhaps most interesting when compared with The Space Merchants and Gladiator at Law, with which it shares a number of features, but from which it also deviates. In the 2 earlier novels, the world was dominated by advertising agencies and corporate lawyers respectively. Here, it's a single insurance firm, known only as The Company, that rules. Tom Willis is a claims adjuster who views the company with an almost religious awe. He credits it with ridding the world of war, crime and want, and is blind to any evidence to the contrary. The company insures against all of these evils, which is to say that those in good standing with the company receive the food, healthcare, shelter, security and travel that their policy affords them. As far as Willis is concerned, those at the bottom of society, uninsurables, deserve that lowly status. Willis was not always so loyal, however. and due to a past indiscretion, he briefly blamed the company for the death of his wife, he's lucky to be promoted and sent to Naples, Italy. There, he's made to investigate two apparently separate crises facing the company. The first is Zorchi, an eccentric man who exploits his incredible regenerative abilities to extract a living from the company. He deliberately harms himself, makes a successful claim on his health policy, heals rapidly, and then repeats the process. The second is a rebel group threatening to rise up against company rule, an unthinkable challenge to the status quo. Inevitably, Willis not only becomes tangled up with this group, but also learns of a link with Zorchi. And what of the formidable clinics, equipped to put perhaps the whole of humankind into suspended animation? Preferred Risk hews quite closely to the formula set up in The Space Merchants. Willis is the standard Pohl Kornbluth protagonist, a white-collar professional whose faith in the system is challenged just as he nears a personal triumph. There is the alluring woman who catalyses that challenge, the shadowy agents of the system, and the satirical focus on unchecked corporate power. Some elements separate the novel, however. The Italian setting is quite unique and draws on Pohl's experiences during World War II. The irascible, pompous character of Zorchi is distinctive, as are his bizarre mutations. The book's also interesting in its extrapolation of 1950s fears. Here, Europe is heavily balkanized, with microstates occasionally resorting to limited nuclear warfare. Only the United States remains whole, preserved as the seat of company power. The absence of Kornbluth is felt in the novel's lessened cynicism, and the presence of Del Rey is perhaps reflected in its greater emphasis on action. Late in the story, there's a major battle in the shadow of Roman ruins, something with no equivalent in a book like Gladiator at Law. Those who enjoy the classic Pohl-Kornbluth collaborations would do well to seek out the lesser-known successor that is Preferred Risk. It's a worthy variation on similar themes, and a book which deserved better than to be declared the winner of a phony contest. It's another minor classic of 1950s social SF, co-written by a pioneer of that form. Thanks for listening to this episode. You can find more of my writing in text and audio form at my site andyjohnson.xyz. You can also find me on Twitter at andyjohnsonuk, and you can support me at patreon.com/andyjohnson. Catch you next time.